Hello, hello. I am so happy you're here. My name is Brianna, and I'm a coach and consultant who helps alleviate the mental and technical barriers that keep online business owners stuck. And if I can be sure of one thing, it's that you're pressed for time. So I'm honored that you're choosing to spend part of your day here, and I want to make the most of this time together. And I might be just a little bit biased, but you've made a great choice to watch this now. In fact, you'll especially get a lot out of this if it still feels like you're not on the right path or that something is off, even if you've had your business for a while. If you have trouble setting goals or deciding what to focus on, if it's nearly impossible to show up as your full and true self when thoughts like, am I good enough? Or what will people think are on repeat in your head? You'll also get a lot out of today if you know the what that you need to do, but it's the actual doing that's the problem. And you'll get a lot out of here today if you take action here and there, but you're not consistent enough to make any meaningful progress. On the other hand, you might want to skip this if you can easily take bold and courageous action. If you have no trouble if you have no trouble sticking to your plan, even when life tries to get in the way, or if you are able to make consistent and productive progress toward your goals. So, if that sounds like you, then like I said, you might not get as much out of this, but you are, of course, more than welcome to stay. So, why should you listen to anything I have to say about this anyway? So, for a little bit of background about me, I have OCD and social anxiety. And during a session, I started realizing how much these issues were affecting my business. In case you're unfamiliar, OCD thrives on the need for things to be done a certain way. And it's got little patience for mistake and basically a zero ability to deal with uncertainty. So for me, that means dealing with severe perfectionism and indecisiveness. I mean, it took me more than 6 months to name my business, and it's called Brianna Buford and Co. for crying out loud. And then with social anxiety, extreme worry and focus on what others think leads to low confidence and fear of judgment about every business decision that I make. To the point to where I used to cry when posting on social media because I was so worried about what people in my quote unquote real life would think. Now, it goes without saying that being okay with mistakes, uncertainty, and putting yourself out there is pretty mission critical for your business to be successful, which means OCD and social anxiety created this almost comically perfect environment for getting stuck and living out of alignment. And no matter what I tried, making progress felt like pushing a boulder uphill. That was the case until I started getting more clear about what I wanted and started applying specific tools in the moments I was experiencing fear and resistance, which is why I'm convinced that the way to create a business and life you love is more than simply knowing that you need to just feel the fear and do it anyway. That phrase sounds so great and powerful, but in theory, in the moment, it's like, but how do I do that? But how? Let me tell you something. When you are feeling fear and resistance, your brain and body survival instincts are kicking in. Even if your rational brain knows there's no danger of bodily harm, your reptilian brain, which controls your survival instincts, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few if you're unfamiliar with it. But that reptilian brain is really running the show in those moments. And it's interpreting the triggering scenario as a threat for your safety. It's putting up caution tape. It's saying, danger, do not enter, turn around, don't drown. And it doesn't matter what type of danger you're sensing. Your reptilian brain's job is to keep you safe from all danger. So it's great because it's keeping you alive, but it's also like, thank you for your service, but we don't really need you right now. It's more than building a business and life you love is also more than just hustling and grinding. I thought I could force my way to success using brute force, and I landed in the hospital twice within a year due to burnout. It's also more than just having a positive mindset. While that's important, you've also got to take positive action as well. You've got to change the way you think and process information. And then you've got to change the way that you act and respond to the resistance. And that's why I'm so excited to share my Take Action Now framework for taking consistent action toward the business and life you love. This framework was developed from years of therapy, trial and error, research, and enough self-help and productivity books to fill a small library. And the cool thing about it is that it's funneled through a business lens. So it specifically helps business owners take the action they need to reach their goals. It includes tactical tools and repeatable processes that show you how to respond to unhelpful thoughts, make decisions, develop a plan, and take action, especially when it feels hard. That means when perfectionism, procrastination, worry, and overwhelm show up, you know exactly what you need to do in those moments. Ultimately, this process is designed to help you break through the barriers that hold you back and keep you stuck so you can get out of your own way, get things done, and finally have the business and life you see for yourself. Now, obviously, it would take hours to get down into the nitty gritty of the actual specific tools and techniques that are used within each step of this framework, which is why I've created a whole coaching program around it. But what I can share with you during this time today is how resistance and your comfort zone work together and how the framework works overall so that you can apply whenever you're finding it hard to take action. So, by the end of this presentation, you will learn how your comfort zone is keeping you both safe and stuck at the same time, why resistance makes it hard to take action but easy to make a decision, and how to expand your comfort zone and take action consistently using the Take Action Now framework. So, before we talk about that, I do want to take a moment to set your intention. Why did you choose this moment to watch or listen to this? Are the kids at school leaving you with a bit of quiet time? Did you catch up on work and have some free time to watch this? Or did you block this time on your calendar with intention as a meeting? Why did you choose to watch this right now? Why are you here right now? And what would you like to get out of this time together? What would you like to learn from this? Whatever your reason, honor yourself by eliminating distractions that might be around you. Flip your phone upside down, close other tabs, make this window really big. That way you can be fully present. And as you do that, I also want to shift your mind into this learn and absorb mode. You know, there's this practice that Marie Forleo shares that's excellent to use anytime you're going into a new training. So as I'm talking about comfort zones and taking action, you might hear something that you've heard before. You might even have the thought, I know this already, and start shifting your attention elsewhere. If that happens, I invite you to catch that thought and say, what can I learn from this? So instead of, I know this already, say, what can I learn from this? You might also hear something that that you think won't work for you in the way that your life or business is structured. So if that happens, instead of saying this won't work for me, try asking yourself, how can I make this work for me? Yeah, that's good, right? Yes, I absolutely love using this anytime I'm diving into a new training or a new tool. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. So I'm going to start with a pretty big claim and say that I can tell you what you want, what you really, really want in one word: prosperity. You know, a lot of people think of prosperity in terms of financial wealth, but it's actually much more than that. Prosperity is the experience and feeling of wealth in areas of your life that matter most to you. Areas such as finance, work, business, friends, family, hobbies that together create the experience of overall satisfaction and fulfillment. Your personal prosperity index, as I call it, is a measurement of your level of satisfaction with your business and life overall at any given time. And your prosperity gap is the distance between where you are in business and life and where you want to be. We all have a gap, even if it's an itty bitty one, and that's what helps give us our drive. The issue is that the wider the gap, the greater the sense of dissatisfaction, even if it's subconscious, that you have with your life and business. So the greater your dissatisfaction, the harder it is to feel worthy, see the possibilities, or take the necessary actions to make a change. And this, my friends, is what happens when we get stuck. Our prosperity gap is so wide that we can't see a path forward, or we feel it's not really worth it to try, or that it's too scary to leave our comfort zone. And here's the truth though. In order to close your prosperity gap and feel a greater satisfaction with your business and life, then yes, you will need to leave your comfort zone. And yes, it's easier said than done. So where you're at now is your own individual comfort zone. Everyone's is different, and what you feel comfortable doing, somebody else might find terrifying, and vice versa. The important thing is that you honor wherever you're at without judgment. Now, fear and resistance do a good job of holding us back and keeping us stuck inside our comfort zone, and it's incredibly frustrating. But here's a mindset shift to help you give yourself some compassion. Your brain is not trying to hold you back or keep you stuck. What your brain is actually doing is trying to keep you safe inside your comfort zone. This is because our brains are hardwired to keep us safe from danger. I mentioned the reptilian brain a few minutes ago, and back in the 60s, neuroscientist Paul D. McLean, if I'm saying that right, proposed that there are three main parts of the brain: the neocortex, the limbic, and the reptilian. So the neocortex controls our higher thinking, like our speech, our logic, our higher thinking skills. Our limbic is in charge of our emotions, and then there's the reptilian brain, which controls our survival instincts. So thousands and thousands of years ago, rejection from the group meant that we'd be unprotected. So we'd be left without food, without fire, possibly left out to die. So in order to survive, we needed to make sure that we fit in. Nowadays, it might mean rejection in the form of getting made fun of, ostracized, or canceled. But the brain is treating the scenario the same as if it were as if it were like thousands of years ago. So as though it's putting your entire life in danger. It's saying that this thing is dangerous and therefore must be avoided. We must stay inside our comfort zone in order to be safe. Sounds very rational when you think about it. But then on a related note, resistance is the force that tries to stop you from doing activities that take you outside your comfort zone. But the goal of resistance is to hold you, while the goal of resistance is to hold you back, it's actually pointing you forward in the direction of your truest self, where your truest self wants to go. And if you listen to that intuition, it's very easy to decide how to move forward and what steps to take next, which means that, in order to grow, you have to fight against that resistance. The cool thing is that when you fight against the invisible yet very real force of resistance, once you take action and achieve a goal that falls outside your current comfort zone, you've at that moment actually expanded your comfort zone. And you don't even have to make big leaps to expand your comfort zone. You just have to get further than you've previously gone. That's really all it takes to expand your comfort zone. Because once you've made more progress than ever before, you're able to see with tangible proof what you're capable of. You're able to look back and see what once felt hard now feels easy to do. And from there, you're able to continue to take inspired action over and over again. And so continuing to take aligned action and continuing to expand your comfort zone so that you can reach your goals and build the business and life you love is the ultimate goal of the framework I was telling you about. And we'll talk about that now. So the Take Action framework has 5 steps, which are check-in, clarity, confidence, courage, and consistency. Now, if it's all right with you, I will share a brief overview of how each step works and then share an activity to get you started with each step that I think you'll find really helpful. So the check-in step is all about your baseline. So it's where you're at now mentally and where you're at in terms of goal progress compared to where you were previously. Because we're whole people, I like to loop in business and life together to create what I call a full personal prosperity audit. But today, we'll just focus on the business side of things. So if you're going through this process alone, these journal prompts will give you a good start. You don't have to write these questions down. I'll be including them in the audit and planning guide that I'm sharing with you later. So some of the check-in journaling prompts are, how do I feel about how the last 90 days went? How do I feel about how the last 90 days went? You can use, a quarter, you can use a month, a year, whatever timeline you want. What were some of my wins from the last quarter? These can be as broad or narrow as you like, and you can list as many as you want. You can list things like finishing a project, doing a podcast interview, getting a new client, customer wins or reviews, times when you stepped outside your comfort zone, a time when you chose to rest instead of push yourself to burnout. Anything that you're proud of is fair game here. Now, if you have trouble thinking of things, look back in your calendar to see what you had going on in terms of meetings, obligations, projects, and other things that you might want to add to that list. The next question to journal about is what's still in progress or unfinished from last quarter. Look at your goals from the past quarter and see what you started but haven't finished. Now, let's look at the things that slow you down. So, you want to ask yourself and write down, where did you get stuck? What didn't you start? Where did you procrastinate or get overwhelmed? The answer to these questions will guide you on how to respond to that resistance the next time it shows up. And all of these answers together should help you get an idea of what your current baseline is. So if the check-in step helps you define where you're at now, the clarity step will help you decide where you're going to focus your energy on next. So this step helps you get clear on why you want to focus on these areas of your business and what goals and steps specifically you're going to take to get there. So to get started on this step, ask yourself and write down, what are your goals and desires for the next quarter? Write down as many as you want, no judgment or filtering, as many goals and desires that you have for the next quarter. Now pick your top three and write down what it would mean for you and your business if you made these three things happen. What's holding you back the most from getting there? What are the steps for each that you need to take to get there? And how long do you estimate each of these goals will take? And at this point, after you've journaled all of that, you've now drafted a rough map of what you'll be focusing on for the next 90 days, which is pretty exciting. So the next step is confidence. And this was one of the most important steps in the process. That's because confidence is the catalyst that allows you to move through the final two steps. Without having confidence that we can do the things that we put our mind to, or without the confidence that we are worthy of having the business and life we want, it's nothing but an uphill battle against ourselves. That's because negative mental chatter, which we can fight off with confidence, holds us back more than financial burdens, family obligations, and work, and you name it. And without the confidence that reaching our dreams is possible, we're going to run out of steam and motivation as soon as things get rough. So you can think of confidence like gas in a car. You need the gas to keep going. Everything else in the car can be working just fine, but without gas, you're not going anywhere. When you have confidence in yourself, it's easier to gain the courage to take action. And when you have the courage to take action, it's easier to be consistent. And when you're consistent, you'll see growth and progress. And when you see growth and progress, your confidence grows. And that cycle repeats and keeps serving you over and over and over again. When you have a healthy level of confidence, any sort of negative feedback or comments don't bring us down or even faze us. The only time it brings us down is if we're already struggling with that belief internally. For example, a limiting belief that I struggle with mightily is that I am not an interesting person. It's something that I've talked about at length in therapy, but it just wants to hold on tight in my head. So whether it's true or not is irrelevant. What matters is that it's a belief. And that belief holds me back and prevents me from showing up in particular ways in certain places. So if there's something that you can think of that's a belief that either holds you back or prevents you from showing up in a way that you wish you could, I want you to think about that right now. And here's an activity to get you started with the confidence phase. Whatever your belief was that you thought of, think about a time when that was not the case. So if you think you're not funny, think about a time you made someone laugh. I don't care if it's a chuckle or a smirk. Think about a time you made someone laugh. If you think you're bad at sales, think about a time where you got your first client, or a time where a sales call or discovery call or what have you went really well. And no, these are not just flukes and they're not just one-offs. This is proof that the belief you have around that topic is not true. Now, I'm going to encourage you to make something that I call a high five list. And this is one of the activities in my program. Some people call it a badass list, a kudos list. My friend Lilia calls it a ta-da list. But here we're going to call it a high five list. And it's a list of things that prove your limiting beliefs wrong. There are things that you have done or that you do well. They are things that other people have praised you about, and they're positive things that you believe about yourself. Basically, this is a list to keep handy and to continue to add to when you're feeling down or your confidence has taken a hit. Because honestly, sometimes we just really need a reminder that we're qualified or worthy, especially after we've had a rough day. And we need to make sure that even that we have enough confidence to continue forward. So, confidence is about having the self-assuredness and desire to take action. And then the next step, courage, is about actually taking the action. So there are a lot of tools that I teach within this phase, but my favorite is called resistance training because it gives a how to the whole idea of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And you can either plan this out or you can do it in the moment. But basically, you take something you either feel scared of doing or you struggle with, resistance showing up. And when we do excuse me well when we do resistance training, we're practicing checking in with our bodies, and we're doing the opposite of whatever our brain is telling us to do. So first you need to determine the activity that you're feeling resistance about, and um, making sure that it doesn't actually present a threat to your life, health, or well-being to someone you know. So if it does present an actual threat to your life or health or well-being, it probably means that you're about to do something that you shouldn't do. But assuming that it doesn't provide that sort of a threat, you want to move forward with this resistance training exercise. So, in a nutshell, resistance training involves taking an activity that you feel fear or resistance around. So think about what you typically do in those moments. Notice how you feel. Do you get hot? Do you get cold? Do you get really sleepy? Like me, for example, I start getting really sleepy when I start feeling resistance. If it's time to take some sort of action, I start feeling like it's time to take a nap. I don't know why. And it doesn't even have to be a physical response, though. Do you start thinking that you're not ready, that later would be better, or that you should do something else with your time right now? Whatever it is, do the opposite of that and then participate fully in that moment. So, depending on what it is, you might notice your heart rate increasing. You might notice the thoughts you're having. You might notice the urge that you have to stop, wait, or avoid. Noticing these things helps you, as they say, you know, they help you get comfortable getting uncomfortable. You can also name it. I really like doing that. So you can say out loud or in your head, I'm feeling nervous. I want to stop. My heartbeat just picked up a little bit, and I'm still okay. Now, when it comes to actually taking action or doing the opposite of what you usually do, the important thing is not that you complete the entire action or step. The important thing is that you get farther than you did before to build a sense of accomplishment and expand your comfort zone. And you don't want to beat yourself up for taking so long or struggling with X thing when everyone else seems to be able to do it easily. No, now is not the time. Now is the time to honor your individual timeline and celebrate yourself for stepping outside your comfort zone. Like I mentioned earlier, honor where your comfort zone is at the present moment. An example that comes to mind for me is posting my first Instagram story. Like I mentioned, I have social anxiety, and one of the things that I struggle with under that umbrella is posting on social media because of the whole, what will people think? And my aunt might see it and all that stuff. And I'm talking about full on panic attacks. And, it's not something I'm proud of for sure. And I also know I'm well aware that nobody cares and that nobody's thinking about my social media posts like that. But nonetheless, it's still something that brings up anxiety. But as an online business owner, a social media presence is something that's pretty important. So I decided that I wanted to post one IG story, but the idea of the whole step was making me freeze up. So I had to go back and say, what's one small step that I can go through? Well, I can open up a Google Doc. That seems simple enough. So I started out with that. I started out with literally opening up a Google document. And then I went to drafting some copy. And then I went to creating a background in Canva. And then I finally posted. And mind you, this was over the course of like 3 weeks, which internally is annoying, but after I posted, woo, buddy, you couldn't tell me nothing that day. I felt so good. I mean, I felt so good that if I didn't do anything for the rest of the year, I would still feel accomplished, which I know is a little bit ridiculous. But the takeaway is that slow progress is still progress. And now, honestly, the whole IG story thing is a pretty extreme example because this was an action that was years in the making and it was something that was like a severe struggle. And so you don't have to use resistance training with something that you've been avoiding for years or something that is really, really hard for you. You can, and it serves you well in those moments, but it can also be used with anything that's more small or things that you procrastinate on. Um, and like I said, all the way up to big things that are getting in the way of you living fully. Whether it's something small or something big for you, the process is the same for both. But you can't just take action once and call it a day. You have to do it again and again to solidify your expanded comfort zone and make forward progress toward your goals. Part of the reason for that is that whether it's doing a task or starting a habit, the more you do something, the easier it becomes to keep doing it. And that's where consistency comes in. And this phase is pretty straightforward. As you probably know, the hardest thing about being consistent is staying consistent. So part of this phase is addressing some of the things that might get in your way ahead of time so that you know what you need to do when that issue happens. So to get you started with this step, take a sheet of paper and draw a line through the middle. Think of the barriers that tend to get in your way, and this can be mental barriers or time barriers, such as, say, something that frequently happens to you is that when you get home from work or finish your client projects for the day, you're too tired to work on anything creative for your business. Well, when that happens, what are some of your options? You're not stuck here. You have options. So you could do something that's less mentally taxing for you, like brainstorming content or admin work. That way, you're still getting in time for your business, even when it's later in the day. You could start waking up 1 hour earlier to work on more creative tasks for your business before your energy gets drained by other commitments. You can also choose to do nothing and just watch some Netflix. And there's really nothing wrong with that from time to time. You know, don't forget that resting is a verb, and sometimes it's the action that's going to serve you best in that moment. So resting counts as self-care. And as long as you're not, consistently using it to avoid doing something more productive, it's fine. And this list can go on and on and on with as many possibilities for possible solutions as you want. And just because you choose one solution this time doesn't mean that you can't choose a different solution next time, especially when it's something that shows up frequently for you. Basically, the point of this exercise will help you see that you have more control and more options than you think. You can also help yourself be more consistent by celebrating your wins and taking time to enjoy your accomplishments. You can write down your wins on your high five list, or you can journal about how it made you feel. And if it's an especially big goal, you can treat yourself to something special like gelato, a mani-pedi, or a movie. Now, there's a big caveat with being in the consistency phase. At this point, your comfort zone has expanded and you're able to do things with more ease than you previously were. And it feels really good and it really is a great thing, but that's also the problem because this is now your new comfort zone, which means that the more you stay consistent here, the easier it will be to just stay here in this new comfortable level instead of continuing to grow, which will wind you up in the same state of dissatisfaction over time. But the good news is that there's a simple solution to this, and that's just to repeat the process. So you do go back to step one and you repeat the framework again. You check in with yourself to see where you're at in this moment, in this new moment. You get clear on the direction that you want to keep heading or switch to next. You gain confidence that you have what it takes to make it happen. You have the courage to take action toward those goals, and you continue to take action consistently so you can watch yourself move and grow in the ways that you want. You'll also find that once you go through the full process once, you'll go through it faster as you repeat the next step. So, it might take a little bit of time to go through phases 1 through 5 at first, because you'll be, learning, you'll be practicing these tools that I shared for the first time, or say you're going through the program, you're going to be learning all kinds of tools that you can learn. But then once you go through it again, you'll know what tools might work when. So, for example, like I was saying, my Take Action Now program that goes through this same framework is a 3-month coaching program designed to help you go from overthinking, holding yourself back, and not taking action to trusting yourself, getting out of your own way, and taking consistent action. And since the program is 90 days, we're able to dive deep into the action that you want to take over a time period with, like I was saying, all kinds of resources, including one-on-one support, video lessons, scenario specific activities, accountability calls, and the framework's signature tools to use in the moment before, during, and after resistance shows up. And all of this is built so you can keep taking consistent action toward your goals. And all of that really sounds like a lot, and it is, in order to serve you well and give you the full range of tools in enough time to practice implementing. But the point of me sharing this is that once you fully learn all of the tools and methods and apply them, you can repeat the process much more quickly the next time you're laying out your quarterly goals. Then, as you're implementing in the future, you'll know how to pick which tool you might need when you're feeling overwhelmed and how to respond more effectively when you're procrastinating and so on. Like, it's a whole thing. So, everything we talked about today should give you a good start with getting out of your comfort zone and taking action consistently. Next, you can download the free prosperity business audit and goal planner that I've provided at briannabuford.com/prosperity planning guide if you haven't gotten it already. This will help you check in with where you're at now and gain clarity about where you really want to be in your business. As you're filling it out, you have an open invitation to email or message me if you have any questions, or, as you're going through the workbook, and I've included that contact info right in the PDF. Or if you just want to say hey or share what you thought of this presentation, then that's welcome too. So with that, I want to thank you again for sharing some of your time with me. I sincerely hope you found this useful and have a good rest of your day. Bye.